Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier of Thinking Stamping and I'm an Independent Stampin Up demonstrator from New Zealand. And today I'll be sharing with you how I made this card, which I made just as part of my experimentation of new products from the January to April 2024 mini catalogue, which is just come live this month. And I've got a whole lot of stuff from pre-order that I've been playing with, played around and made this card, and I'm going to share that with you today. So we're going to start off with what I've used in terms of paper, and then we'll talk about some of the products that I've used. So starting off with my card base, I've used a basic black card base. It is my standard card base size, so it's the width of an A4 piece of paper, 21 centimetres, scored at 10.5, and I've cut that at 14.8. Now, if you're an imperial person, rather than a metric person, just use whatever your standard card size base is and adjust the mats accordingly. So you need a base. Then I've used a piece of gold foil that is cut 1/2 centimetre or 1/4 inch smaller, so it's 10 by 14.3, and then another piece of basic black, which is 1/2 centimetre or 1/4 inch smaller again. So the black piece is 9.5 by 13.8. I've got a piece of basic white for the inside, and that is 10 by 14.3. And then for the sentiment, I've got two small pieces, one of gold foil and one of basic white, and they are approximately 6 centimetres square. So that's the paper stuff that we're going to use. Now I'm going to talk about what we're actually going to do with each of those things and the products that I've used to do them with. Now, as I'm going through this, if you see anything that you'd like to add to your craft stash and you live in New Zealand, of course, you're more than welcome to shop with me, and there's a link to my online store in the video description below and in the end cards, which will pop up at the end of this video. So what I've done is I've started off with a piece of gold foil. Now I know I could cut out of the middle, but I'm not going to. And so what I've done is I've embossed that using the Basics 3D embossing folder, just to give it some texture. And so we've ended up with that. That's going to mat onto there. With the basic black piece, this piece here miraculously turns into this. And I have used for that the magnificent Layered Florals 3D embossing folder, which I just love because that is how deeply it cuts without wetting the paper, without doing anything to it. That is just a straight emboss with that folder, and you get that beautiful, beautiful deep texture with it. What I've done with the inside is I've used the embossing folder again, and I have just embossed the bottom of the page. So the way that you would do that is you just get your piece of paper, you just pop it in as deeply as you want it to be, and just run it through the embossing folder like that. Alternatively, you could do a little piece down the side, and again, you just pop it in the folder, as wide as you want, and run it through the folder that way, and you'll get, instead of patterning down the bottom, you'll get it down the side. So whatever you like, but that's quite a nice way of just giving your inside something special going on. We'll just pop that to the side. Now the other things that I've done, so the gold square miraculously turns into a beautiful stitched edged circle. And I've done that using the Stylish Shapes die, and I've used the third largest of those stitched Stylish Shape circles to give me that edge. And then on this piece, I have taken my sentiment from Perennial Postage, and I have used Sending Love and Best Wishes. I could equally, that's the wrong thing. I've stamped my sentiment on there, and then I've cut it out using that die, which is from the new catalogue. It's the Everyday Details dies, and so that's giving you circles with holes, rectangles with holes, and some other shapes as well. So I have used that second largest one up there, and I picked the Stylish Shapes because it layers nicely on top of it. So I've stamped and gold embossed my sentiment onto that paper, and then cut it out with that stitch die from Everyday Details, and that's how I've ended up with sending love and best wishes. Happy Mother's Day would have fitted, and probably big hugs would have fitted. The others, if you wanted to use some of those other sentiments, you'd have to upsize or change the shape of whatever you're doing with the sentiment. But, you know, the sentiment is a highly changeable element of this card. Now, the only other things that you're going to need at some point is some of this Simply Elegant trim and the secret ingredient, which is white ink. So Stampin' Up! Whisper White ink. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a sponge dauber. We're going to ink up our sponge dauber, and then we're just going to ever so lightly just rub over the embossing. And because those bits are raised up, they will pick up the ink. Now you can be as light-handed or as heavy-handed as you like. The pigment ink does take a little while to dry. It's slower to dry than the normal inks that we use. So be a little careful of smearing it on other things. It also, in my opinion, it dries a little bit lighter than it looks when you first ink it. However, as with all inking arrangements, you know, start light because you can always add in. You can always add in more, but once it's there, then it's there. So, you know, go easy. Now you just gently tap the dauber, pick up some of that Whisper White ink, and add those little touches of colour. Now I'm using black, white and gold as my colourway because, you know, I'm a big fan of black and gold. But I think that this is something that would work beautifully well with other dark colours. So in my head I can clearly imagine this done in something like Night of Navy or Starry Sky with some silver glimmer paper. I think that would look very smart. I'm also a big fan of early espresso. So I think it would look very nice with early espresso, perhaps some very vanilla and gold, or copper if you still have some copper in your stash. Okay, so when you think you've inked that up enough, we can close up our ink pad. And then after that, it's just straight up assembling, really. So attach the embossed piece, your gold foil mat, to your basic black. Now, normally if I'm in class, I'm loath to mix glue and gold foil, because if you get glue on the surface of the foil, it takes away the shine, and there's nothing you can do about that. So you have to either just be brave and back yourself, which is what I've done, or use tape. Okay, so when you've done that, then you're going to do the same thing with this. Now, because this is heavily textured, you want to make sure that you've got glue near the edge, not so close to the edge that it will ooze out onto the gold foil, but you want it near the edge. And I'm going to put more glue in the center than I normally would, because I do want that layer to adhere, and you're taking deeply textured and attaching it to another surface which is already textured. So firstly, you want to make sure you've got lots of glue around the edges, but not so much that you'll ooze. And then when you're happy with the placement, I'm going to press it, which is something that I wouldn't normally spend so much time thinking about. I'd normally just sort of place it, give it a quick wipe around with a bone folder and leave it. Now I'm not going to press with the bone folder because I don't want to mess with the beautifully textured images from the embossing folder, but I am going to press with my fingers so that I get a good attachment around the edges. So you can see that's already starting to look lovely. Again, I'm going to back myself to not get glue where I don't want it. So I'm going to glue in the center, attach it to my inner label, give it a press. What I should have done perhaps before I did that was just make sure that I'd flicked out all the holes, because I see there's one there. Okay, so now we're nearly done. See, the other virtue this card has, apart from being what I think is both stylish and elegant, is it's actually really quick. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get the gold cord out of this Simply Elegant trim, and I'm going to tie myself a big loopy bow, and I'm going to do a big bunny ear loop and another big bunny ear loop because I want lots of loop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to even it up a bit, and I'm going to get myself a glue dot, and I'm simply going to attach my big loopy floppy bow roughly where I am expecting my sentiment to go. Now that loopy bow is a bit on the crazy side, but we'll see how he goes. See, what I'm wanting to do is just have some gold showing in behind my sentiment. So I'm going to get out my dimensionals, and you know I'm not going to let this baby sag, so there's going to be plenty of dimensionals. Going to flick them off. Now, going to line that up straight. Okay, I'm going to have a little look, just see, does that look straight? Yep. And now that I'm happy with the straightness, I'm going to give that a press. And then I'm just going to cut that a little bit, just to give it some swoosh. And the very final thing I can do, if I want to, I can add in some bling, and I'm just going to go pretty restrained on that. I'm just going to use some of these classic rhinestone jewels. You could go really blingy and get something gold, let's get some more gold in there, but I'm just going to go with a little bit of just plain silver because I think that goes quite nicely with the white ink that we've got on that embossing folder. Okay, and then later on I'm just going to glue that one in so he looks like that. And that's how beautifully easy that wonderful layered floral embossing folder is to use. The only other thing I've done with it, apart from use it as a straight out embossing folder, is this one, which is pretty much the same card, a layer, a sentiment, a bow, but what I did with this one was I simply white embossed it, and then I just, instead of using white ink to pick up the impression, I just used my stamping blends and coloured in the raised up bits. So that's a different thing that you can do with that folder beyond just using it as a straight out traditional embossing folder. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that quick look at the Perennial Postage Layered Floral wedding card. I suppose it's a wedding card, or it could even be a birthday card, couldn't it, with a beautiful generic sentiment like that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, and I can be reached through the contact details in the video description below. Again, if you live in New Zealand and you would like to shop with me, there are details to my online store. If you've liked what you've seen and you haven't subscribed, please do so you don't miss anything new that I do. And above all else, everyone, happy stamping.